I was born with a cursed tongue. Whatever dark words slipped from my lips always came to pass. When I was 6, the trafficker who had kidnapped me broke my left wrist. In a fit of rage, I locked eyes with him and hissed through clenched teeth. You break my bone, I take your head. Before the echo of my voice faded, a powerful gust tore a heavy steel sign from the rooftop above. Its jagged edge struck his throat, killing him instantly. When I was 10, the elderly caretaker at the state orphanage. All the little money I'd earned hauling scrap metal. I stared at him coldly. You take my bread, you lose your bed. You won't see another sunrise. That very night, he passed out drunk in the facility sauna. Short circuit locked the door and sent the temperature soaring. By morning, he was dead. Then came the Charles family. Billionaire industrialist Charles and his wife had finally traced their long-lost biological daughter back to me. Knowing the curse inside my mouth, I sealed my lips the moment I crossed the threshold of their estate. I swore I would never speak another word for a month. It worked. Until the night of my brother's 21st birthday gala. My adoptive sister, Delilah, cornered me near the balcony. Without warning, she grabbed my hand and threw herself backward into the floor-to-ceiling glass. The window shattered with a deafening crash. By the time my mother came running, Delilah was injured. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't even look at the shattered window. She slapped me hard across the face. Lila has a severe blood clotting disorder, my mother screamed. No matter how much you resent her, you don't gamble with her life. My father rushed over, his face tight with fury. Do you have any idea what it took to bring you back to this family? And this is how you repay us? Get out to the courtyard and kneel. You don't get up until you understand what you've done wrong. I bit the inside of my cheek and tasted blood. I said nothing. Fine. You want me to speak, I'll speak. Fixed my gaze on Delilah's tear-streaked face. Every syllable carrying the weight of a curse. I knelt on the cold blue flagstones of the courtyard. My stomach cramped painfully. I hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. Rain poured from the eaves, soaking through my clothes until I could barely feel my skin. My vision blurred. I collapsed sideways, my face landing in a muddy puddle. Suddenly a black umbrella appeared overhead. My older brother Beckett stood above me with one arm around Delilah's waist. He looked at me with open contempt and nudged my shoulder with the toe of his polished Italian leather boot. Why are you so stubborn? All you have to do is swallow your pride, apologize, and Mom and Dad will let you inside. Do you really have to tear this family apart before you're satisfied? My fingers dug into the wet gravel. I kept my mouth shut. When I first arrived at the Charles mansion, my mother had worried that I wouldn't sleep in an unfamiliar bed. She sat beside me every night, gently stroking my hair until I drifted off. My father had canceled a month of corporate dinners just to eat at home with me and Beckett. Beckett had once confronted a wealthy heir at his country club simply because the man mocked my accent. To protect that brief, fragile warmth, I had chained my own tongue. Even when I was framed, even when they forced me to kneel in the freezing rain, I remained silent. Delilah leaned against Beckett's chest, touching his lapel with trembling fingers. Beckett, please let it go, she whimpered. Rory suffered so much before coming home. She's probably just terrified I'll take your love away. Beckett's expression hardened. Suffering in the past doesn't give her the right to hurt people. If we don't stop this cruelty now, she'll destroy this entire family. See? Saying that, I remained motionless. Delilah slowly crouched beside me. She leaned toward my ear, lowering her voice so only I could hear. So what if you share their blood? To them, you aren't worth a single strand of my hair. She pulled away suddenly, widening her eyes in feigned panic and clutching her chest. Beckett, my chest. I can't breathe. Beckett's face went pale. He tossed aside the umbrella. Delilah, into his arms and hurried toward the driveway. Delilah, your heart can't handle this kind of stress. I'm taking you to the ER before leaving. He turned and glared at me. If anything happens to her because of this, I'm done with you. The sports car roared away into the darkness. I remained in the mud as the rain poured down. I knelt there all night. By dawn the storm had finally passed. The heavy front doors opened. My parents stepped outside, their eyes swollen from exhaustion. Beckett followed behind them. Support, according to Delilah. My mother rushed down the marble steps and threw a thick medical report into the puddle in front of me. The doctor said Delilah suffered sudden cardiac arrest. Her heart stopped. If we'd arrived 2 minutes later, she could have died. And you still won't show the slightest remorse? My father leaned heavily on his mahogany cane. We spent millions searching the country for you, Rory. Is this your gratitude? I lowered my head, staring at the white paper slowly soaking in the muddy water. Delilah leaned weak against Beckett. Mom, Dad, please don't be angry with Rory. She grew up on the streets. She just doesn't know how to belong in a real family. Then she slowly crouched in front of me and reached out as though she wanted to help me up. Hidden from our parents, she leaned closer and whispered. I paid $88,000 to have that report forged. Sister, I don't have a heart condition. But as long as I pretend to be sick, they'll destroy you for me. Then she suddenly cried out and fell backward onto the damp stone, clutching her chest. It hurts, Rory. Please don't push me. Beckett lunged forward and grabbed me by the collar. Are you out of your mind? She's already so fragile and you're still going after her? During the struggle, the jade pendant beneath my shirt slipped into view. It was a protective amulet my mother had traveled to a remote sanctuary to obtain for me when I first returned home. Beckett saw the green stone and tore the silk cord from my neck. Something Mom prayed over for your protection. Someone like you doesn't deserve to wear it. He turned and placed the jade pendant in Delilah's hand. Dear Delilah, this will keep you safe. Delilah clutched it against her chest and gave me a triumphant smile that only I could see. I slowly removed Beckett's fingers from my collar. Then I whispered, faking chest pain every single day? My mother shouted, enough. I looked directly at Delilah. Keep pretending long enough, and see what happens when your heart finally can't take it. Delilah gave a startled laugh. Are you serious? The words died in her throat. Her smile vanished. She suddenly grabbed her chest, struggling to breathe. A scream tore through the courtyard. This time the pain was real. She collapsed as her body shook uncontrollably. My mother cried out and rushed to her. Beckett scooped Delilah into his arms and hurried toward the garage. My father pointed his cane at me, his hands trembling with fury. You heartless girl. You're trying to frighten your sister into another attack. Lock her in the basement. 8 security guards surrounded me and dragged me across the stone driveway. The basement was dark and damp. I lost track of how many days passed until one night the door burst open. Beckett stormed inside, grabbed me by the shirt, and dragged me upstairs into the blinding light of the main hall. It was the Charles family's quarterly gathering. The grand living room was packed with relatives, uncles, and prominent shareholders. Delilah sat in a wheelchair near the fireplace, her face pale as she rested against my mother's shoulder. Beckett shoved me onto the Persian rug. All our relatives are here today. Get on your knees and apologize to Delilah. She suffered an acute heart attack and nearly lost consciousness. You knew how fragile she was, and you deliberately provoked her. You nearly killed her. My mother pointed at me, her hands trembling so badly that her gold bangles rattled. We opened our hearts to you, and you tried to destroy your own sister just to secure your place in this family. If you refuse to apologize today, you are no daughter of mine. Murmurs spread through the room. She was raised on the streets. Did you expect to turn on her own sister? How disgraceful. Delilah clutched my mother's hand, tears streaming down her face. Mom, please don't blame Rory. She suffered so much growing up. It's natural that she carries some bitterness. Watching her performance, I felt sick. I've been locked in a basement for days, I said, my voice hoarse from disuse. And not one of you thought to investigate the $88,000 she spent on forged medical records? Beckett kicked me hard. I fell sideways, striking my forehead against the edge of a marble table. Stop lying, he shouted. Master Beckett, wait. Miss Rory is telling the truth. The room fell silent. Agnes, the elderly housekeeper who had served the Charles family for 20 years, emerged from the kitchen and dropped to her knees. Her hands trembled as she pointed toward Delilah. 5 days ago, while I was cleaning the second-floor study, I heard Miss Delilah arranging forged hospital documents over the phone. I also saw her throw her heart medication away. Delilah's face went pale. She covered her face and burst into tears. Agnes, how could you say that? How much money did we pay you to frame me? Beckett snapped. He seized a porcelain teapot from the side table and struck it against the floor beside Agnes, sending porcelain fragments scattering. You ungrateful old woman. Get her out of this house. I threw myself over Agnes before the guards could reach her. They grabbed me and dragged me away from her. I curled around Agnes, shielding her as much as I could. I looked up at my family. My father stood by, expressionless, while his guards treated his biological daughter like a. My mother covered Delilah's eyes and whispered soothingly, as though protecting her from something frightening. Whatever fragile bond of blood had existed between us was gone. I had chosen silence to protect their lives, yet they were willing to destroy an innocent old woman, just to protect a lie. Stop, please, Agnes sobbed. I confess, I made it up. Beckett gave a cold laugh. He grabbed my hair and forced me to look at him. You see that, Rory? Even the housekeeper you dragged into this family is willing to lie for you. Delilah sat in her wheelchair, tears filling her eyes as she gently tugged at Beckett's sleeve. Beckett, please stop. She turned toward my father. Dad, if Rory really can't stand having me here, I'll pack my bags and leave tomorrow. She can have everything in my name. Just please stop this fighting. Stop this. My mother wrapped her arms around Delilah, sobbing. My father struck his cane against the floor. Rory Charles, we brought you home for a family reunion, not to watch you tear this house apart. Starting tomorrow, you'll be confined to the guest cottage until you learn how to treat your sister with respect. Beckett shoved me back and stood protectively in front of Delilah. We gave you everything, and you turned out to be nothing but trouble. When is this jealousy going to end? I looked at the three of them gathered around Delilah, united against the monster they believed me to be. I swallowed hard. A slow, terrifying smile appeared on my lips. I was done holding back. I locked eyes with Delilah. My voice was quiet, yet it carried across the vast, silent hall. Since you're all so convinced she's on the verge of death, fine. Let's make sure she actually dies a little. A collective gasp swept through the room. Beckett opened his mouth to shout at me again. I never looked away from Delilah. Word by word, I delivered my decree. Your heart will stop 3 times before midnight. Delilah froze. The room seemed to shrink around those 9 words. My mother stared at me in horror. Take it back. I smiled through the blood still running from my forehead. You wanted me to apologize. Instead, you got exactly what you kept accusing me of being. Beckett stepped toward me. You sick. A violent gasp came from the fireplace. Delilah's body jerked. Her hands flew to her chest. Mom! She toppled sideways out of the wheelchair. My mother screamed. Beckett caught her before her head struck the floor, but Delilah was already convulsing in his arms. Call an ambulance. Everyone rushed toward her. I remained where I was. For the first time since entering the Charles family mansion, I didn't feel the slightest urge to protect them. Paramedic arrived within minutes. The moment they attached the monitor, his expression changed. She's in cardiac arrest. My mother's face drained of color. No, that's impossible. She has a heart condition, but the doctor said. The paramedic began compressions. 1, 2, 3. Delilah's body jolted. The monitor screamed. Then her heartbeat returned. Everyone exhaled. I closed my eyes. 1. The curse had begun. The ambulance took Delilah away. My mother climbed into it. Beckett followed. My father remained behind. He stared at me across the ruined living room. You're coming with us. I laughed. It was a strange sound, considering how badly my head hurt. No. His cane struck the marble. You don't get to refuse me. I just watched you lock me in a basement for days because your favorite daughter lied about me. My father stiffened. You're my daughter. Then you should have acted like my father. His jaw tightened. Get in the car. I shook my head. No. He raised his hand. Before he could say anything, Agnes stepped between us. Her old body trembled, but she didn't move aside. Mr. Charles. My father looked at her. You heard what she said. Agnes swallowed. I heard everything. She reached into the pocket of her uniform and pulled out her phone. I didn't confess because Miss Delilah threatened me. My father's expression changed. I confessed because I was afraid. She pressed play. Delilah's voice filled the room. Make the report convincing. Rory can't prove anything once everyone believes she's unstable. Another voice answered. Agnes's voice. What if someone finds out? Delilah laughed. Who would believe an orphan over me? The recording ended. Nobody moved. My father stared at the phone. Agnes continued. There is more. She opened another recording. This one was dated 3 days earlier. Delilah's voice again. After Rory is disowned, I'll inherit the shares Mom transferred to me. Beckett already promised he'll convince Dad to change the trust. My father's face turned white. I looked toward the doorway. Beckett had stopped there. He had returned without anyone noticing. He heard every word. That's fake, he whispered. Agnes shook her head. You gave Miss Delilah access to the study yourself, Master Beckett. Beckett looked at my father, then at the phone, then at me. For once, he had nothing to say. A hospital nurse suddenly rushed through the front doors. Mr. Charles. My father spun around. What happened? Your daughter went into cardiac arrest again. My mother's scream echoed from the driveway. The nurse continued. We revived her, but something is wrong. Her heart keeps stopping without any detectable blockage. My father's eyes slowly moved toward me. I met his stare. He remembered my words. 3 times. The nurse's pager went off. She looked down. Her face went pale. She's arrested again. My mother's voice shattered the night. Delilah! The ambulance doors slammed shut. My father rushed after it. Beckett remained frozen. I walked past him. He caught my wrist. Rory. I looked down at his hand. He released me immediately. His voice was barely audible. Did you know this would happen? I smiled. You've known me for months. He swallowed. You've barely spoken. Exactly. His eyes filled with fear. You cursed her. I told her what would happen. That isn't an answer. I stepped closer. You all thought my silence meant weakness. I pointed toward the ambulance. You were wrong. The ambulance disappeared down the driveway. I turned toward Agnes. Are you leaving? She shook her head. I've served this family for 20 years. She looked toward the road. But I think I've served them long enough. I laughed softly. Then come with me. We walked out together. Behind us, the Charles mansion remained blazing with lights, crowded with relatives who were finally whispering a different question. Who was Delilah really? And why had Rory been silent for so long? At the hospital, Delilah's heart stopped for the 3rd time. This time, the doctors couldn't restart it. She survived. Barely. But when she woke 2 days later, she could no longer move her left arm. The doctor called it neurological damage caused by repeated cardiac arrest. My mother collapsed when she heard. Beckett sat beside Delilah's bed for 6 straight hours. Then he noticed something. The jade pendant. It was still around Delilah's neck. The same pendant he'd ripped from me. The protective amulet my mother had begged the sanctuary to bless. Delilah's fingers suddenly tightened around it. A thin crack appeared across the green stone. Then it shattered. Delilah screamed. The heart monitor went wild. And across town, I woke from a dream with blood on my tongue. I hadn't spoken. Yet, the curse had already found its next target. Because the words I'd spoken in the Charles mansion had contained one final condition. I'd cursed her to survive long enough for everyone to discover what true misery is. 3 days later, Delilah was discharged. My mother brought her home in a wheelchair, wrapped in blankets and surrounded by 3 doctors. She looked miserable. I almost laughed. After everything she'd done, she still had the nerve to look like the victim. Beckett pushed her wheelchair into the foyer. My father followed behind them. The entire family had gathered. Apparently, they had decided I needed to apologize again. My mother pointed at me. Rory, kneel. I looked at her, then at Delilah, then at Beckett. No. My mother slapped the table. You nearly killed your sister. I smiled. She nearly killed herself. Delilah's face twisted. Rory, please. I raised one finger. She immediately shut up. That was when Beckett noticed something. He looked terrified. You're doing it again. Doing what? Talking. I smiled wider. Good observation. He stepped backward. My father grabbed his cane. Enough games. I looked at the cane, then at him. Dad. You keep pointing that thing at me. He sneered. So. I tilted my head. You'll lose it before dinner. My father's face changed. Stop. I shrugged. Sure. He turned away. 3 seconds later, the rubber tip of his cane snapped. The metal shaft flew upward. He stumbled backward. The cane struck a chandelier chain. The enormous crystal chandelier dropped 6 inches before catching on its emergency cable. Everyone screamed. I burst out laughing. Beckett stared at me. You're insane. Maybe. I looked at him. But you're still standing there. He slowly backed away. I pointed toward the garage. Beckett, you should probably move your car. Why? Because it's about to have a bad day. He ran. Too late. The garage door opened. His brand new sports car rolled backward. Nobody was inside. The brakes had somehow released. It crossed the driveway, smashed through the decorative fountain, bounced off a stone lion, and landed in the koi pond. Everyone stared. Covered my mouth. Oops. My father looked ready to explode. You did that. No. I smiled. I only said it would have a bad day. Beckett came sprinting back, soaked to the knees. You little. He stopped. His eyes widened. Behind him, the fountain's stone lion shifted. The statue toppled. Straight toward him. Beckett dove sideways. Crash. The lion smashed into the exact spot where he'd been standing. I applauded. Nice reflexes. My mother screamed. Stop talking. I looked at her. She immediately covered her own mouth. Too late. I had an idea. Mom. She shook her head violently. Don't. You've spent so much money protecting Delilah. Her eyes widened. Rory, please. I smiled. Wouldn't it be funny if every dollar you spent protecting her disappeared? My father's phone rang. He answered. His face went blank. What? He listened. Then another call came. Then another. Within 5 minutes, 3 of the family's biggest accounts had been frozen. A major acquisition collapsed. 2 factories shut down. The stock price plunged. My father dropped into a chair. No. I leaned against the doorway. That wasn't even a death. He stared at me. What? I shrugged. I'm experimenting. The room became completely still. I looked at Delilah. She was trembling. Don't worry. I smiled. I haven't forgotten you. Her fingers tightened around the wheels of her chair. Rory. I walked toward her. She tried to back away. The wheelchair wouldn't move. Why won't it move? Beckett grabbed the handles. He pulled. Nothing. He pulled harder. Still nothing. I crouched beside Delilah. You stole my pendant. Her eyes darted toward the jade necklace around her throat. You said it would protect you. She started crying. I gently touched the cracked stone. Let's see. I whispered. May every protection you stole become the thing that traps you. The pendant shattered. The wheelchair suddenly began rolling. Backward. Fast. Straight toward the staircase. Beckett. He lunged. He missed. The wheelchair flew down the first step. Then the second. Then the third. Delilah screamed. Beckett grabbed the railing and jumped after her. The wheelchair crashed through the decorative glass barrier at the bottom. Delilah landed safely on a pile of expensive velvet curtains that had fallen from the balcony. Beckett wasn't so lucky. He landed directly in the enormous birthday cake that had been sitting on the banquet table. Cream covered his entire face. For 3 seconds nobody spoke. Then I started laughing. Couldn't stop. Beckett slowly lifted his head. Chocolate frosting dripped from his nose. You think this is funny? I wiped tears from my eyes. Very. He stood. Then slipped. His head disappeared into the cake again. I laughed even harder. Even my mother looked horrified. My father looked exhausted. Delilah stared at me with pure hatred. I stood straight. Don't worry. I walked toward the front door. I'll save the best one for tomorrow. My father shouted after me. What does that mean? I turned around. It means. I smiled. Someone in this house is going to die. Everyone froze. I opened the door. And I haven't decided who yet. I walked into the night. Behind me, 3 people immediately started arguing about who should leave the mansion first. I couldn't stop smiling. For 6 years, my tongue had been a prison. Now, it was a weapon. And the Charles family had just given me a reason to use it. The next morning I woke to screaming. I walked downstairs with a piece of toast in my mouth. My mother came flying around the corner. Rory. I swallowed. What? She grabbed my shoulders. Your father is trapped in the elevator. I blinked. Okay. He's been stuck for 40 minutes. I glanced toward the elevator. Then I remembered what I'd said yesterday. Someone in this house is going to die. My mother followed my gaze. You didn't. I smiled. I didn't say anything. That was when the elevator made a horrible grinding sound. Everyone backed away. The doors opened. My father stumbled out covered in white powder. He stared at me. You. I raised an eyebrow. What? He pointed at me. You cursed the elevator. I laughed. I didn't even know elevators could be cursed. He charged toward me. That was his mistake. The chandelier above him suddenly snapped loose. My father looked up. So did everyone else. Dad. The chandelier dropped. He dove sideways. It smashed into the marble floor. Crystal exploded everywhere. My father crawled out from underneath a fallen curtain. He was shaking. I looked at him. 2 accidents before breakfast. He screamed. Get her out of this house. Guards rushed toward me. I sighed. Fine. I looked at the first guard. You'll slip. He stepped forward. His shoe hit a crystal. He went flying. I looked at the second. You'll break your glasses. He instinctively grabbed them. A chandelier fragment bounced off his hand. His glasses shattered. The third guard stopped. He looked at me. I smiled. You're smart. He immediately ran. I laughed. Then Delilah appeared at the top of the stairs. She was pale and furious. You think you've won? I looked up. No. I pointed at the staircase. I think you're about to lose. Her eyes widened. The stair railing snapped. Delilah grabbed it. The entire section tore loose. She screamed. But instead of falling, she swung forward and landed directly in the decorative koi pond. Splash. I stared. Then started laughing. My mother rushed toward her. Delilah. Delilah emerged dripping wet. Koi slapped her across the face. I nearly choked. Then my father shouted. Enough. He grabbed a pistol from the security guard. The room went silent. He pointed it at me. You've destroyed this family. I stared at the weapon. For once I didn't smile. Put it down. He cocked it. No. I looked directly into his eyes. You'll never fire that gun. He pulled the trigger. Click. Nothing. He tried again. Click. The gun jammed. He stared at it. I whispered. And the next time you try. His face went white. The gun exploded in his hand. He screamed and dropped it. My mother ran to him. Beckett rushed down the stairs. He looked at his father. Then at me. You're a monster. I shrugged. Probably. He charged. I waited until he was 3 steps away. Then I said, Beckett, you'll fall at my feet. His foot caught on the carpet. He flew forward. He landed face first directly in front of me. I looked down. Technically. I smiled. You did. He groaned. My mother started crying. Why are you doing this?
Ik kruipt iets beside here.
Because I spent months begging you to listen. I stood. You chose not to. My father clutched his injured hand. You can't keep doing this. Oh, I can. I looked around the mansion. At the broken chandelier. The destroyed fountain, the flooded garage, the shattered windows, the ruined staircase. Then I smiled. Because you still haven't figured out the most important rule. They stared at me. I slowly raised one finger. I don't have to be angry when I curse someone. My smile widened. I just have to mean it. I looked directly at Delilah. Her face went white. Rory, I spoke softly. You've spent your entire life pretending to be fragile. She shook her head. Please. So here's your gift. I stepped closer. From now on, whenever you pretend something is wrong with you, I paused. Your body will make it real. Delilah's eyes widened. She suddenly clutched her chest. Mom! My mother screamed. No! Delilah fell from the wheelchair. The monitor she'd been wearing began shrieking. Her heart rate skyrocketed. She gasped. I can't breathe. I simply watched. She had faked chest pain dozens of times. Now every fake symptom would become real. The doctors arrived 10 minutes later, then 20 minutes later, then 30. By sunset, Delilah had been transferred to intensive care. Her condition changed every time she exaggerated another symptom. My head hurts. A migraine. My leg hurts. Her leg went numb. My heart hurts. The monitor went insane. Eventually the doctor shouted. Stop asking her how she feels. My mother stared at him. Why? Because every time she describes a symptom, something physically happens. I smiled from the hallway. Delilah looked through the ICU glass. She saw me. I lifted my hand and waved. She began screaming. The monitor immediately started beeping. The doctor shouted. Someone get her out of here. I laughed. Finally, after all those years of keeping my mouth shut, I was having fun. By the end of the week, the Charles family mansion looked like a disaster zone. My father had lost control of 3 companies. My mother's accounts were frozen. Beckett had broken his leg after slipping on the marble stairs. And Delilah was still in the ICU, terrified to say a single word about how she felt. But I wasn't finished. I walked into the hospital room one night. Delilah immediately screamed. Get her out. The monitor exploded into frantic beeping. The nurse rushed in. I smiled. You're still pretending? Delilah shook her head. I didn't say anything. You screamed. I was scared. I leaned closer. Then don't be scared. Her face went pale. I whispered. You'll spend the rest of your life being afraid of your own voice. The monitor flatlined for 2 seconds. The nurse screamed. Then it returned. Delilah burst into tears. I walked out laughing. The next morning, my father came to find me. He looked 20 years older. Please. That one word almost made me laugh. The mighty Charles Patriarch was begging me. We'll give you whatever you want. I crossed my arms. I want the truth. He nodded desperately. Anything. Then sign everything. He froze. I placed a stack of documents on the table. My inheritance. The shares you promised me. The mansion. And every dollar you spent covering up Delilah's lies. My father stared at the papers. You'd take everything from your own family? I smiled. You stopped being my family when you locked me in a basement. He signed. 1 page. Then another. Then another. When he finished, I took the pen. Thank you. He looked up. Are you satisfied? No. His face fell. I want one more thing. What? I leaned toward him. You're going to watch. Watch what? I pointed toward the television. A breaking news report had just appeared. Ued-Industries collapses after massive fraud investigation. My father stared at the screen. His phone began ringing. Then his assistant called. Then the board chairman. Then the police. His entire empire was collapsing in real time. My mother came running into the room. Your father. She stopped. 2 officers entered behind her. Mr. Charles, you're under arrest for financial fraud and falsifying corporate records. My mother screamed. This is a mistake. I smiled. No. I looked at my father. This is the bill. He was led away. My mother followed him. Then Beckett limped into the room. He stared at me. You ruined us. I shrugged. You helped. He looked at me with hatred. I stepped closer. Remember when you told me I wasn't worth a strand of Delilah's hair? His face tightened. I smiled. Tomorrow, you'll learn exactly what that strand was worth. He backed away. What are you going to do? Nothing. I turned toward the window. You're going to do it yourself. The next morning, Beckett received a call. His girlfriend had dumped him. His business partners had abandoned him. His bank accounts were frozen. Then his phone displayed one final message. Your entire family's assets have been seized. He screamed and threw the phone. It bounced off the wall. Then a framed portrait fell directly onto his head. He collapsed. I watched from across the street. Still standing. He looked toward me. I smiled. Barely. That afternoon, I returned to the mansion. The guards were gone. The staff were gone. The cars were gone. The Charles family had nothing left. Except Delilah. She was brought home from the hospital that evening. She couldn't walk without assistance. She couldn't speak without risking another attack. And she couldn't look at me. I stood at the bottom of the staircase. She stared down at me. Rory. I raised one finger. She immediately shut her mouth. I smiled. Good girl. Then I walked upstairs. I had spent years afraid of my own tongue. Now the entire world was about to learn why it had been cursed. Because the Charles family was only the beginning. The Charles family lasted exactly 6 more days. My father was sentenced after investigators uncovered years of financial crimes. My mother lost the mansion, her jewelry, and nearly every account she had. Beckett's businesses collapsed so quickly that creditors were lining up outside his apartment. And Delilah? She became terrified of speaking. Then she made one mistake. She called me. Her voice trembled through the phone. Rory, please. I'll give you anything. I laughed. You already gave me everything. I can fix this. No. Then what do you want? I looked out the window. The same thing you wanted when you first saw me. She went silent. To be the only daughter. Her breathing became shaky. You're sick. No. I smiled. I'm free. She began crying. Please don't curse me again. I thought about everything she'd done. The forged reports. The lies. Agnes. The basement. The rain. The jade pendant. I answered calmly. Fine. Delilah exhaled in relief. I continued. I won't curse you. She whispered. Thank you. But I will curse everyone who ever protects you. The call went dead. That night, Delilah's last remaining guardian abandoned her. Then her lawyer resigned. Then her doctor refused to treat her. Then her aunt transferred every remaining asset away from her. Within 48 hours, she was completely alone. She called my mother. No answer. She called Beckett. He blocked her. She called my father. He was in prison. Finally, she called me again. I answered. She sobbed. Rory, please. I said nothing. She whispered. Why won't you say anything? I smiled. Because I'm done wasting curses on you. The next morning, Delilah disappeared. 3 days later, the police found her living under a different name in a tiny apartment across town. She had nothing. No family. No money. No power. Exactly what she'd wanted from me. Meanwhile, I sold the Charles mansion. I gave Agnes enough money to retire comfortably. Then I left the city. For the first time, I didn't have to measure every word. I could complain. I could swear. I could laugh. I could say whatever I wanted. And nothing happened. Until 6 months later. I was sitting in a restaurant when a waiter accidentally spilled coffee on my sleeve. I laughed. Damn. I wish this whole restaurant would disappear. The waiter froze. The lights flickered. Every window shattered at once. The walls groaned. I stared around the restaurant. Oh, the floor cracked. People screamed and ran. I stood up slowly. A strange realization settled over me. The curse hadn't disappeared. It had simply grown stronger. I looked at my reflection in the shattered window. Then I smiled. Well, I grabbed my coat. That's going to be fun. And somewhere across the city, a man was about to say something very stupid in front of me. I burned the letter. Then someone knocked on my apartment door. 3 knocks. I opened it. An old man stood outside. He smiled. You've grown. I stared at him. I knew that voice. He was the man who had found me after the trafficker died. The man who had taken me to the orphanage. You gave me the curse. He nodded. I did. Why? Because I needed a weapon. I laughed. You gave a 6-year-old girl a death sentence. No. He stepped inside. I gave you a gift. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen. He didn't flinch. You've killed 13 people with your tongue. 13. He smiled. You don't even know the half of it. My blood ran cold. He placed a black notebook on the table. Every page contained a name. Every name had a date. Every date matched a death I'd caused. Then I reached the final page. My name was written there. Tomorrow's date was underneath it. I looked up. You're trying to kill me. No. He smiled. I'm trying to make you speak one final sentence. What sentence? He leaned closer. Curse me. I stared at him. Why? Because your curse doesn't belong to you. He tapped the notebook. Every person you cursed was connected to me. My stomach dropped. The trafficker. My employee. The orphanage caretaker. My informant. Delilah. His smile widened. An experiment. I stepped backward. You planned all of this? I placed you inside that family. I froze. What? Delilah was never supposed to lose. He looked toward the window. But you surprised me. I laughed. So you manipulated my entire life. Yes. And now you want me to kill you? Yes. Why? Because I'm dying. He pulled down his collar. His skin was gray. I have 1 day left. He smiled. If you curse me, your curse transfers back to its creator. I understood. If I killed him with my tongue, I would lose the curse. I stared at him. Then I smiled. Perfect. He looked confused. You're going to curse me? No. I picked up the notebook. I'll let you die naturally. His smile disappeared. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. I tossed the notebook into the fireplace. You wanted me to spend my life being terrified of my own words. I walked toward the door. Instead, I'm going to spend the rest of it saying whatever the hell I want. His face twisted with panic. You'll regret this. I opened the door. Maybe. I looked back. But you'll never know. I shut the door. Behind it came a terrible scream. I waited. Nothing happened. Then the scream stopped. I smiled. For the first time in 20 years, my tongue was mine. I stepped outside. A little girl bumped into me on the sidewalk. Sorry. I laughed. No problem. She smiled. Then I realized something. I'd spoken. Nothing happened. No curse. No death. Nothing. I started laughing. I laughed so hard people turned to stare. The cursed tongue was gone. And somewhere behind me, the last person who had controlled my life had taken his final breath. I walked into the sunlight. Free. And for once, I had absolutely nothing to fear from my own voice. 6 months later, I thought my nightmare was finally over. Then I received a package. Inside was the black notebook I'd burned. Every page had been restored. Except now, the names were different. They belonged to the people who had destroyed my life. My father's name was first. My mother's was second. Beckett's was third. Delilah's was last. I laughed. Apparently, the curse hadn't disappeared. It had only changed owners. That evening, my father tried to escape the country. He made it onto his private jet. The engines roared. The plane lifted. Then one engine exploded. The jet spiraled toward the runway. My father survived the crash. Unfortunately, he landed directly on the airport's giant electronic billboard. The entire terminal watched as his name appeared across the screen. Charles Industries, bankrupt. He was still alive when police pulled him down. But he spent the rest of his life unable to walk. My mother wasn't so lucky. She had spent millions trying to hide the family's crimes. One night, she opened a safe containing the last of her jewelry. A faulty security mechanism triggered. The safe door slammed shut. She screamed for help. Nobody heard her. The next morning, the police found her unconscious inside. She survived. But every jewel she'd spent her life worshipping had been seized as evidence. Beckett tried to rebuild. He opened a tiny restaurant using the last money he had. On opening night, he proudly announced, "Nothing can ruin this place." I heard about it the next morning. The kitchen sprinkler malfunctioned. The ceiling collapsed. The restaurant flooded. The insurance company denied his claim. He stared at the wreckage for an hour. Then he whispered, "Why does this keep happening to me?" I smiled when I heard. Because he'd forgotten something. Words mattered. Delilah was the final one. She became obsessed with proving she wasn't cursed. She stood on stage at a charity gala and announced, "I'm perfectly healthy." The chandelier above her snapped. Crashed onto the stage. She survived. Barely. The crowd screamed. Delilah crawled from beneath the wreckage. Then she looked at the ceiling and shouted, "I'm still alive." The stage floor collapsed beneath her. She disappeared into the orchestra pit. Alive again. Somehow. The doctors later called her the luckiest woman they'd ever treated. I called her the most stubborn. As for me, I opened a small bookstore. No mansion. No billionaire family. No cursed tongue. Just quiet mornings and a ridiculous amount of coffee. One evening, a customer asked me why I always smiled when people mentioned the Charles family. I looked toward the window. Because they taught me something. What? I smiled. Never steal from a girl with a cursed tongue. The customer laughed. I laughed too. Then the lights flickered. Once, twice. I stopped smiling. A whisper came from the back room. My voice. But I hadn't spoken. "Rory." I slowly turned. The black notebook was sitting on the counter. Its pages were turning by themselves. A fresh name appeared. Rory Charles. Underneath it was tomorrow's date. I stared at it. Then I grinned. "Oh, come on." The lights went out. And somewhere in the darkness, someone laughed. My laugh.